Good evening, everyone. Gordon Causey coming at you live and unscripted once again. And guess who's here? Always shows up. Come on up. Yeah, good girl. Good girl. And as you know, if you've seen this channel before, this is how I start. Speak. All right. Candy has me well trained, and she has been taken care of. Right now, it is 9:35 p.m. on this, the 18th day of September, Wednesday, September 18th, 2024. And wanted to do a quickish video tonight. We'll see how quick it is. I always intend quick videos, and then they drag on, typically because people show up in the chat. Maybe no one's going to show up tonight. There's a lot going on in the world. And I know that my station, this channel, zero production values. Nowadays, guys have podcast, YouTube channels, and they can make it look like the nightly news. And even just someone like me, the software, I don't think is prohibitively expensive, and I imagine some is even free through freeware type sites. But I'm an individual who actually kind of likes bare bones basic, because I do think it speaks to a degree or a level of authenticity. I'm not dressing things up. It's just one man's thoughts, views, and opinions, throwing them out there into the void. And but live chat is always on, so you're welcome to chime in. I just recently did go north of 1,000 subscribers. I haven't yet properly said thank you to everyone who signed up recently and everyone who's subscribed for a long time. Very much appreciated. There's a little chemical reaction that happens in the brain when we are engaged with on social media. It's dopamine. It's a type of endorphin that sends off a little happy, positive reaction in the brain, and I'm sure we all know about it. Danielle Sweeney has shown up. You're out in BC, I believe, so things are nice and early. Am I wrong about that? Is it British Columbia? Whatever the case, everyone is welcome. Always appreciate people chiming in because it animates me. I realize I'm not talking into the void, but I labeled this video asking the question, are we inching closer to another world war? I intentionally, at first, I was going to write World War III, but some commentators, everyone pretty much universally accepts we had the First World War, 1914 to 1918, had the Second World War, 1939 to 1945, and those are pretty much set in 99.9% of the population's minds. But there are some who contend that the Cold War between the old Soviet Union and the United States, that represented the Third World War, that it was a world war. And some have stated that there's a war going on between the Western world and Islamic extremists, and they've framed that as the Fourth World War. Personally, for me, there have been two, and if another one breaks out, it will be the third. And I forgot, how could I forget Newfoundland? And Daniel Sweeney is actually saying something with which I agree, that we are already at World War III. I think we're in the early stages of it. I think we are in the early stages of World War III. And if you're familiar with what's been going on in the news just for the past 2 days, things are escalating quickly in the Middle East in this conflict between Israel and Iran's proxy forces, their proxies being, the big one is Hezbollah in Lebanon. That's some describe it as a game of chess, and Israel against Iran, and they refer to Hezbollah as Iran's queen piece. By contrast, Gaza, where Hamas is referred to often as a pawn. It's a very small, far less significant player on the board. And I've heard the Houthis describe something akin to a rook if you're familiar with the game of chess, you know that certain pieces are more valuable than others, and the pawns are the least valuable. The queen is the most valuable. I'm not going to go into a discussion about the finer points of chess because I'm a rudimentary chess player at best. But at any rate, what's happened over the last 24 hours, 48 hours, is that, and this is freaky. This is freaky. I think there's a tendency for a lot of people to kind of just push it away. There's so much else happening in the world, so much happening in our own personal lives. But I think this is significant on a number of different levels. We all know what's happened, or most will, that first it started off with pagers. Hezbollah had moved away, its militant force had been issued pagers rather than cell phones. Apparently, a number of years ago, Israel was able to take out a senior militant by having their cell phone explode or something like that. And they were also concerned with Israel's ability to monitor their movement and monitor their conversations. And so they decided to go lower tech. And within the last few months, Hezbollah militants had been issued pagers, the old, not Motorola, but that was the most common one that I remember from back in the day with a little LED, LCD screen. And Daniel Sweeney is writing that, yeah, all those pagers going off. And don't worry if you left off an F. I can figure out. Everyone has typing issues. Keyboards are so small on phones, and if anyone does a typo, don't worry about it. Daniel Sweeney is of the opinion that there won't be a nuclear war. I'm not going to say definitively, I pray there won't be a nuclear war, but I'm not as confident that this doesn't have the potential to go nuclear. But sticking to the pagers, they blew up, and then more recently, they're saying that it's been handheld walkie-talkie type devices. I was listening to Amir Sephardi, or however you pronounce that gentleman's last name, who is a Messianic Jew. He's Jewish, but he affirms Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior, and heads up a ministry in Israel, and is also, from what I understand, a former major in the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force. And he was referring to the walkie-talkies as PTT devices, and you'd have to have been in communications. PTT means press to talk. So like a walkie-talkie, when you're pressed down, that's when you're talking. And now there's talk even of solar panels blowing up in Lebanon and Beirut and maybe even in Syria. And this is where things get freaky, because the predominating story right now, they're saying, is that the pagers, and I guess these walkie-talkies as well, that somewhere along during the manufacturing process of these devices, that in some way Israel, and I should note, Israel has not claimed responsibility, although I have yet to hear anyone suggest it wasn't them. It's pretty much universally accepted that Israel was behind this, but it's something of standard operating procedure for Israel to neither confirm nor deny. There's basically no comment. But I'm operating under the assumption that it was Israel, and that they were somehow able to infiltrate the manufacturing process and to get a very small explosive charge next to the battery, so that when a message was received, that it would trigger an explosion which would blow up the battery, etc. And I did some checking before doing this video. But before I get on to what I'm saying, I want to read. Mish Christie has shown up. Good to see you, Mish. And Mish is writing, the remotely controlled explosions are hugely disturbing, and they are. They are beyond the context of the conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. Beyond that context, and I'll get into it. Daniel is saying it was well organized. And Daniel is also writing, and Ping from China said, Putin, if you go nuclear, you lose my support. If Russia goes nuclear, if Russia goes nuclear, Iran is widely known, is pursuing a nuclear program, and there are individuals in what I'll call the professional intelligence community, if that is a thing. I'm talking about people who used to be in senior levels of U.S. military, British military, like these ex-intelligence type individuals will be on BBC, CBC, CNN, and the like. And there are some who believe that Iran may very well have already achieved nuclear capability, that they may already actually have in their possession at this right now, nuclear weaponry, but that but those who hold this view say that Iran lacks the capability. They don't have a delivery system. They do not have technology like ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles, that would allow them to deliver a nuclear bomb at a long range. But leaving that aside, the question I have is this story, that this pervasive claim, and it came out within, probably minutes, if not, an hour or two of these explosions taking place, is the speculation. Speculation has been that somehow Israel, Mossad, Shin Bet, IDF, whatever, most likely Mossad, which is roughly the CIA of Israel, that they were able to infiltrate the manufacturing process for these pagers and now these walkie-talkies and other handheld devices, and that they were able to have a small explosive charge installed right next to the battery. I find that problematic on so many levels. You can watch some stories on here, and they're trying to track down where did these pagers come from, and no one seems to be entirely certain. Apparently it was a Taiwanese company, but the Taiwanese company apparently has no manufacturing capability. They own a brand, they own a design, they own the name, and they license it out to other companies, and they license it to a company in Hungary, and the Hungarian company, okay, so they were made in Hungary. Well, no, the company that they dealt with, that they licensed their brand out to, the corporate address for it is a residential building, and there's no manufacturing there. Where were these things made? It gets very, very cloudy. But the thing is, and I'll put the rubber right on the road right now, cell phones could explode without an explosive device. It has happened. There are stories. I was doing some checking on this. I've got an article right here. I guess I'll share it. It's from PC Magazine, and this was written in 2023. So last year. So before the events that just took place. And I think that's significant. So I'm going to share this article. Daniel Sweeney is writing, what scares me is digital ID and digital dollars. Scares me more than war. And trust me, it's coming. Oh, that's the plan. The plan is for the surveillance state. And to have us surveillance 24/7, every activity. Maybe, if we get into Elon Musk's Neuralink technology, the potential that they could even monitor your thoughts and your dreams. Sounds Orwellian science fiction, sounds H.G. Wells, but it is possible. So I'm going to share my screen right now because I want to show this article. Or a lithium ion battery operated device. You don't need to have an explosive charge of any size it can explode. And as you can see from the headline, let me go back so I can scroll through this article. And my computer is doing funny things. And while I'm waiting for this page to come back up, cell phones in of themselves, leaving aside the potential that they could explode, cell phones in of themselves are a surveillance tool. Tracking. Everyone uses Siri or Alexa and thinks it's wonderful. Alexa, play this song. Alexa, do this. Siri, do that. Little games you can play, and now artificial intelligence is playing into it. This chat box, whatever it's called, GPT chat. But here's what it says in this article. Now that I finally got it to come up. Oh man, why is this happening? I'm going to stop sharing because it's just, and my computer for whatever reason is glitching. If I could just get it to work. The average smartphone is unlikely to explode, but it happens. There's not much you can do if shoddy hardware is to blame, but these tips may help prevent your phone from going up in smoke. Sometimes smartphones explode. In January 2023, caught fire while charging overnight. A child in India was killed when a Redmi fiasco a few years back. Why doesn't it happen, and what, if anything, can you do to avoid it? And I'm going to stop sharing the article at this point of the nitty-gritty of how these batteries work. But the batteries in of themselves, this lithium-ion technology, is almost akin to being a computer in of itself. And batteries have memory now, where it used to be with nickel cadmium and other type of battery technology that they wanted to. If you're old like me, you might remember the days of trying to recharge batteries, and you had that thing you plugged into the wall, and you would put your 9-volt, your AA, AAA batteries. They had little ports for it, and they didn't work very well. And ideally, what you had to do is you had to run it right down to zero or darn near zero, and then charge it right back up to full. If you only ran it down half and then wanted to top it up, so to speak, the battery would very quickly start to lose its charge, and it would only recharge back up a dozen times, 10 or 15 times at most, and then you had to throw it away and buy new batteries anyway. The lithium-ion batteries have it's basically like a computer. And what I'm wondering is, were these pagers, and now walkie-talkies perhaps, were these batteries programmed in such a way to alter the programming so that the battery would explode, as noted in that PC Mag article? I think that's possible. I've only come across one other news source, quasi-news source. There's a guy named Nigel Farage, who is a politician in Great Britain running for the Reform Party, recently formed. It's like a 1 or 2 year old party. They ran in the most recent elections, didn't elect any MPs, but I think they still managed to get 5-6% of the vote and higher in some ridings in Great Britain in their most recent general election. And he was noting this as well. And he's the only individual I've heard speaking about it. He has a site, it's called GB News. That's Golf Bravo News, all one word, no spacing. Golf Bravo News, GBNEWS. And his name is Nigel Farage. If you want to check out his video, I'll invite you to search it out. But this idea that could we all, and I don't include myself in this in the sense that I don't own a cell phone. I do not have a cell phone at all. I don't even have an old Nokia. I have nothing. I did have an old S3 Samsung phone, but it's no longer hooked up with the provider. And basically, right now, it's in a junk drawer, and I should probably throw it away. But the point I'm getting at is that is everyone walking around with a device that could be triggered remotely from wherever, because there's some software programming in there that would do something to the battery to cause it to explode, and you don't necessarily need even a small or explosive charge inside to make that happen. This is possible. And what, but in terms of, getting away from that, but I don't want to get away from it entirely, because if you think about it, lithium batteries now are ubiquitous. They're all over the place. They're in cars. They're in probably in television sets. They're certainly in my laptop. They're in e-bikes. This technology is everywhere. Everything is smart now. Our devices are smart. We're stupid. People have outsourced their brains to their devices, to their tablets and their phones. And you got a question? I don't have to think. I don't have to remember. I don't have to commit things. I don't have to invest any muscle memory, any brain effort in trying to remember this. I can just store it in my phone. It's become, we've outsourced our brains. I'm going to read up what's happening, or what's being said in the chat. Wow. I wasn't aware of this. Daniel Sweeney is writing, it doesn't surprise me, but I wasn't aware of it, saying that in order to travel in Europe, you now need a digital ID. I know they had been talking about this. They said that the digital passport, or rather the vaccine passport, allowed them to introduce the technology. It developed the technology that would allow for a digital ID, and they were going to leverage off of the old vaccine passport system to create a digital ID. This is Orwellian, and this is demonic. This is mark of the beast type stuff, in my estimation, 100%. That whole Vax Pass thing, and you couldn't buy, in the Bible, the mark of the beast is needed. You have to take the mark on your forehead or on your hand if you want to participate in the marketplace, if you want to buy and sell. And that's what the vaccine passport was. You had to have the vaccine passport if you wanted to be a fully participating member of society. You want to come in and sit down and have a coffee here? Well, show us your Vax Pass. You want to come worship at our church? You have to show the vaccine passport. The United Church of Canada in my town required people coming to worship to show proof of vaccination. You talk about demonic. The devil is in our church. Satan is in our churches. Reading on. Daniel's filling it up. Lithium is so dangerous, and it is, but we just kind of whistle past the graveyard. And getting back to it, what my fear is that the technology may exist, and we're getting into 007 James Bond type stuff, but does the technology exist that would allow a government agency or a player to send a message to a device that would cause the battery to explode? Not just catch fire, but literally explode, and we've all seen the video images of what was happening in places like Beirut in Lebanon. Danielle's writing about how electronic vehicles, that they go on fire everywhere. It makes big news when they do. I don't know how many electronic vehicles there are on the road. I was talking to a guy I work with about this who drives an electronic vehicle, or a hybrid, and he was talking about the technology and the programming that goes into these lithium batteries. We were discussing it today, and discussing specifically, would they have to have an electronic charge? And honestly, I don't have the engineering background to talk on this point definitively, but it'll be interesting to see, because if you're like me, and there are a lot of people who think that there's something of a war against humanity that's going on, especially in the Western world. And Daniel Sweeney is talking about it at length digital IDs, CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, so that they can track every penny that you spend. In China, they have technology now. They have closed circuit cameras all over the place. And if they can't identify you through biometrics, facial recognition, iris, whatever, they can identify you by your walk. And if you're not familiar with this, take a look. A lot of people everyone has a distinctive walk. We all have our gait. And I learned this firsthand on nighttime exercises in the military, where you're under what's called light discipline, where you're not allowed to have any light whatsoever. You're in complete darkness. The only light you're allowed to use is that red light, so that you can't be spotted, and that you don't lose your night vision. I don't remember the cones and the rods and the way you can pull in light. And what I noticed is I could see the silhouette of someone indistinct walking toward me, and I could say, "Hey, Ramsey," and I know it was Ramsey, because Ramsey had a very stiff-legged walk. And then there was another guy who kind of walked like Boris Johnson with his shoulders, and and you go, "Hey, Johnson, how'd you know it was me?" "I know your walk." And the Chinese have got software that will identify people based on their walk. There's a company called Cambridge Analytics that is said to have, I don't know how many thousand, 5,000, 10,000 data points on each and every individual pretty much in the Western world. Anyone if you've ever been online in any way, shape, or form, Cambridge Analytics said that it had thousands of data points on you. They know your favorite color, your political preferences, your consumer preferences. I mean, now everyone does their shopping online through Amazon, and everything is tracked. We're already living in the early, I don't think it's the early stages of the surveillance state. I think we're well along the path, and the plan is to take it exponentially further. They want to know. Getting back to Elon Musk and his Neuralink technology, they want to know what we're thinking. They want to know what our dreams are. There's a branch of the Canadian government called Horizons Canada. Go check out their website. They paint an incredibly dystopian future where people download their dream data and review it. And they upload their dream data to the cloud, and then they download it and review it so that they can remember their dreams. Well, if you're sent anything like what I'm doing right now, I'm sending this up into the cloud, and that's why I profess loudly. I know that I profess loudly Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior, because His blood is precious, and I'm putting on the armor of God, because I know that we're living in a beastly, demonic world. Anyway, let me read what's being said. Daniel has seen 4 different videos where dogs chewed lithium batteries and burned the houses down. The one thing I will say about that, things are so easily fake. Now, I'm not saying it didn't happen, and it probably did. But as consumers of the news, we've realized that the mainstream media, the legacy media, the corporate, media, that they lie all the time, and that they're not to be trusted. But we still want to be informed, so we look to alternative sources. And what happens is, if I have an Instagram, a TikTok, whatever, a YouTube, as I do, some people monetize and they make money off of it. And the more engagement they get, the more money they make. And faking things is so easy now, even for, you don't have to have millions or tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars. You don't have to be a government agency now to fake things. The technology is so accessible, and ChatGPT and everything. You can fake a lot of things now. And if it will drive engagement, ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. And so there's a motivation to drive engagement. With myself, it's just a little endorphin, just that little dopamine rush that you get from people engaging with you. And by being aware of it, I believe that helps me to keep it in check, because I know that I have this proclivity to wanting people to engage with me. So, calm it down, stay on the path. Don't just don't just chase engagement. So that's my only caution in today's world. There was years ago, it was probably 10, 15 years ago now, there was a digital University of Montreal, I think is the school, or a technical college in Montreal that was into digital creations. The class, they were put into groups of 3, and they were tasked with developing a fake video, a digitally enhanced video, and to upload it to the internet. And whoever got the most views, it was going to be a bell curve. The more views you got, the higher your grade. And the 3 individuals came together and they said, okay, what are the most searched for items on YouTube? And 1 was animals and 2 was young children. So what they did is they had an eagle or a hawk or an eagle type bird come and swoop down and pick up a child, and then it flew 2 or 3 flaps of the wings, and then the child dropped, and the adults came running over. Is the kid okay? Oh my God! And then it stopped, and they uploaded that to the internet. And within hours, it was getting millions of views. They got the highest mark in the class. Totally fake. And people shared this around. Oh my God! Did you hear about what happened in Montreal? And it was well enough done that people thought it was real. And that was 10 or 15 years ago. The technology has advanced so much more today. So anyway, there's another one Danielle points out. Scooters are lithium battery. There are all kinds of e-bikes out there now. And if they have any form of smart technology, if they're connected to this Internet of Things, this IoT, if they have any type of internet Wi-Fi type connectivity, then can some instructions be sent to that battery? And I think that should be worrisome to anyone walking around with a handheld device. I don't think anyone would ever be sufficiently concerned enough that they would throw them away, especially younger people who have grown up with these things, from the age of 10 up. They've constantly had a phone in their pocket. And I guess smartphone technology started around 2006-07. I mean, it's been with us for a long time. And now, good luck. Good luck getting by without one. I enjoy it. But people ask me, how can you live without a phone? So much you need that QR code. I've never even done that. I was on a trip one time, or I was out at dinner one time with some people, and the only way you could look at the menu was on your phone. On the table, the menu was a QR code, and you click that and you look at your phone. I'm like, what? Give me a piece of paper. But I'm a dinosaur. Danielle is saying that she has a friend whose house just set on fire from his scooter. And that people are dying because of lithium batteries. And Danielle, like me, not like me, Danielle has never owned a cell phone. I have. Miss Christie is writing that. Have you heard Samsung is developing a silver-based battery, apparently faster charging and longer lasting? No, I had not heard that. And given, that I don't have a cell phone, it's not top of mind. But Danielle has heard it. And Danielle further says that AI is taking over. Mark of the beast, my friends. I'm going to get into the Israel conflict a little bit because, leaving all this lithium battery stuff and explosions and all that aside, this is shaping up. War is, well, if you're living in Israel, you're already at war. There are roughly, I think it's 60 to 100,000 people who live in the northern part of Israel. I think they call it the Galilee region. 60 to 100,000, we'll say 60. I think that's a low end estimate. 60,000 people living in northern Israel have not been able to go home for pretty much a year now, because the attack that happened from the Gaza Strip, that happened on October 7th. And on October 8th, the very next day, Hezbollah, this non-state player, paramilitary military force situated in Lebanon, started firing missiles, drones, rockets, and there's been mortar fire and the such between coming at Israel, and Israel has been responding. So that border region on both sides of the border is largely depopulated. And Israel, for its part, is a country that is the size of the state in New Jersey, where I spent a number of years growing up, about 5 years, kindergarten to grade 4. I lived in New Jersey, and New Jersey is not a big state, and Israel is not a big country. And the population of Israel is about 9.7 million. New Jersey is about 9.7 million. However, New Jersey doesn't have a desert. And New Jersey is the most densely populated state in the United States. Israel has even less livable land area than New Jersey does. And right now, the northern part in the Sea of Galilee region is uninhabited now because of the fighting going on between Hezbollah and the IDF. And Benjamin Netanyahu has recently, within the last day or two, stated that it's now an objective of the war for Israel to prosecute the war against Hezbollah so that their citizens can return to their homes, their businesses, their schools. They can return to their lives that they had before October 8th. And this is going to get hairy. This is going to get bad. And if you know anything about military, if you know anything about conflict, before an invading force goes in and puts boots on the ground, one of the primary objectives is to disrupt or completely dismantle the communication apparatus of your enemy. You don't want them able to communicate, because if they can't communicate, then they can't coordinate. And if you can take out their communications, Bob's your uncle, you're going to have a much easier time going up against a disorganized force that's unable to communicate properly or well. And this attack, by taking out their pagers, taking out their walkie-talkies, the Hezbollah was already afraid to use cell phone technology. And if they can do it to pagers and walkie-talkies and potentially even solar panels on people's roofs, well, they can do it to cell phones too. And how is a military force like Hezbollah going to operate? So there are a lot of commentators saying now is the time, Israel, now is the time. Press our advantage. The enemy is confused. They're in a state of panic. They don't know who to trust. Obviously, Mossad, this intelligence agency akin to the CIA, they have moles. They have agents operating at senior levels within Hezbollah itself. And so Hezbollah, who can, they're looking at each other going, who can you trust? Are you a mole? Are you the one? And you talk about, the only thing that occurs to me is, but perhaps there are more shoes to drop. Perhaps there is more planned from Israel to further discombobulate their enemy before a ground invasion. But I do think a ground invasion is coming, because I don't see any other way that Israel will be able to return its citizens to this northern part of their country and, live in peace and security. Going to catch up because now a few people have shown up. Brett Skinner has shown up, said Trex Dino. I don't know what T-Rex Dino means. Tyrannosaurus dinosaur. Is that me? Am I the dinosaur? No cell phone. I'm what they call a Luddite. And if you're not familiar with that term, there was a guy named Ludd, L-U-D-D, in England during I think it was 1700s, during the Industrial Revolution, when machines were taking over. And Ludd led members of the guilds and the craftsmen. You wanted a table built, you would go to a carpenter and he would build one table at a time. Might cost you in today's dollars $2,000-3,000 to get that nice 8-seat table. Handcrafted might take 3 months. Now factories were mass producing them and the quality wasn't as good, but now instead of $3,000 you can have it for a couple hundred. And so what Ludd and his followers did was they started going to the factories and destroying the machinery. And they were called the Luddites. So anytime you come across someone who doesn't like technology, they're often called a Luddite, and I'm guilty. But I wouldn't go and destroy anything. It's not in my nature. And Sharunian, congrats to Gordon. Today spoke to a guy who said he won 40 million lottery. Wow. There was Lotto Max. I think it was an $80 million prize. And I saw the news article. I didn't read it, but 2 people won 40 million and one of them's in Ontario, and Sharunian spoke to someone who claims they're one of them. Wow. Brett Skinner is saying, hey, good looking to somebody. And Daniel writes, yes, glad it's bad enough in Canada. You wouldn't want to be living in Beirut or anywhere in Israel. You wouldn't want to be living anywhere in Lebanon or in Israel right now. And it's so sad for the Lebanese people. Ever since 1975, that country was so incredibly destabilized. Basically what happened is the Palestinian population exploded because the Palestinians got kicked out of Jordan, the PLO. The PLO had tried to overthrow the Jordanian government. And so they were expelled and large numbers of them moved into Lebanon. And what's happened in Lebanon starting in 1975 and went up until around 1989, just civil war, constant civil war between Christians and Sunni Muslims, Shia Muslims, small number of Druze, just ethnic, religious conflict, destabilized the country incredibly. The term genocide, I find, is being bandied about too loosely these days. I mean, what's happening in Gaza. A lot of people say, the genocide in Gaza, and they just state it matter-of-factly, there's a genocide. Well, why not the genocide that took place in Lebanon then, during their civil war, 150,000? If 15,000 or 40,000 is a genocide, what about 150? What about Yemen, where 400,000 people were killed during that country's civil war? 400,000, that's not a genocide? And in Yemen, 250,000 of the deaths were in children under the age of 5. War is ugly. War is brutal. And I did like one comment I heard. And, these are pagers, going specifically to the pager attack, hitting them below the belt. The pager attack. It's better than dropping Hamas in Gaza. Gaza is so densely populated, and Hamas is known, widely reported, and I believe it, that they embed themselves around hospitals, schools, refugee camps. It makes sense. It's called asymmetrical warfare, and Hamas does not have the military capability to go up against IDF. They don't in a fair fight with two out in the open field of battle, Hamas is dead. So they have to improvise. They have to engage in war crimes. I mean, look at what happened on October 7th. On October 7th, I forget the number, but I think it was up around 260 hostages were taken, and some of them were babies, little kids taken hostage, dragged underground into tunnels. That's a war crime. No matter, I don't care what side of the debate you're on, whether you're pro-Israel or anti-Israel. Kidnapping babies is a war crime. What did that kid do? And so, how do you respond when you're combating a military force that will kidnap babies? Well, we have to play by the rules. If that was your son, your daughter, your niece, your nephew, your grandchild being held hostage, a baby, well, we have to be nice. There are that military target, they've got their rocket launcher near a hospital. We can't shoot because then we would hit the hospital. It's it's an impossible situation that Israel has found itself in. And I'm willing to discuss this with anyone. I am decidedly pro-Israel, and I make no apologies for it. Israel has a right to exist. It has the right to defend itself. It's an incredibly complex situation. Geopolitics is not there. It's not just always right, right, left, good, bad, right, wrong. There's a lot involved. And what's happened is a large percentage, a large chunk of the Arab world, Iran in particular, but the Palestinians also, cannot get over the fact that they lost. They suffered a humiliating defeat. A catastrophic, humiliating defeat. They call it the Nakba, 1948-1949 war, that when 5 nations of the Arab League invaded the former British Mandate for Palestine, looking to seize territory, and the Jewish Palestinians managed to carve out a viable Jewish nation state for themselves. And you stole it. You didn't steal it. There was a war going on. If Egypt had prevailed, they would have taken more than just Gaza. If Jordan had been more successful, they would have taken more than just the West Bank and East Jerusalem. If Syria had done a better job, they would have grabbed, the northern part. They were all going in to take what had formerly been the British Mandate for Palestine. And then they failed. They suffered 2 more humiliating defeats in 1967, Six-Day War, 1973, Yom Kippur War. And Israel is always fighting, on 2, 3, 4, 5 fronts. And to lose to them is humiliating. And a large chunk of the Arab world and Iran, which is not Arab, they're Persians, they have not gotten over it. And I do not believe they ever will. They will never get over the fact that they were humiliated by a one-day-old country, and that 800,000, maybe at the most, somewhere around 800,000 Palestinian Jews managed to, succeed against 5 invading nations of the Arab League. And it's going to be a mess, because Israel is never going to give up the land that they fought, bled, and died for. And the Arab nations like Iran, they're not, and again, Iran isn't Arab, it's Persian, but they're never going to acknowledge Israel's right to exist. In Tehran, there's a clock, I think it's the year 2040. They have the year 2040 as kind of their, end date for Israel. That by 2040, Israel, sometime between now and the year 2040, and there's a countdown clock until the illegal Zionist enterprise known as Israel ceases to exist. That's the rhetoric. That's what they believe. And they're the ones with their hands on the levers of power in Iran. I don't know about Jane Iranian, just, the regular citizenry. But the mullahs, the ayatollahs, the political machinery of Iran wants Israel destroyed. But rather than attack them directly themselves, they have their proxy forces in Lebanon, Hezbollah, Hamas, which has pretty much, I think, been almost entirely wiped out. I'm sure there's, burning embers, the fire has been put out, and Hamas has no capabilities right now to speak of, nothing of any significance. But like a fire, there are always embers smoldering under the surface, and that's why Hamas wants a ceasefire, so that they can fan those embers and rebuild, reorganize, and plan for the next October 7th, so they can do it again. Got to read up. Danielle is saying hi to Sharunian. Brett is saying it's not war, it's a game of hide and seek and shoot and don't get found, snipe. Well, asymmetrical warfare. Asymmetrical warfare. And that's what's so interesting about this is, with this pager, walkie-talkie, and solar panels now, apparently, with that type of attack, it's almost taking a page out of, you want to fight asymmetrical warfare? The IDF and the Israelis are saying, fine, we can play that game and we can do it better than you can. Wow. The numbers, I don't know what the numbers are. I think it's from the pager attack. I think a dozen or so Hezbollah militants were killed, including, sadly, a young girl who was a family member of a Hezbollah militant. And that's sad and depressing, but it's preferable, even though, you're between such a rock and a hard place as Israel. If you have rockets being launched from close proximity to a hospital, a school, a refugee camp, what do? You've got to take it out to protect your citizens. But if you do, you're going to get slaughtered in the press. And at least this way, the collateral, what they refer to as collateral damage, is far less than what it has been in Gaza. Now, probably 99% of the individuals holding those pagers, the 3,000 or so that exploded, 99% it impacted Hezbollah militants. And there are said to be, Hezbollah claims they have 100,000 soldiers. Conservative estimates put it at 20 to 30,000. Who knows? I'm going to say 30 to 40,000. Who knows how many forces they have, what the size of their army is. But it's bigger than the Lebanese army. They're the largest non-state military force in the entire Middle East. Brett Skinner's right. Can we do the samurai thing and fight with katanas? And Daniel is right. There is a lot of hate for Israel out there. And I put that down to the Islamic world, Al Jazeera, which is content I consume because I don't want to be in my echo chamber. They've done a very good job at the propaganda game. And Israel engages in propaganda too. Propaganda is normal during war. During when the United States and her allies went into Iraq, Persian Gulf War #1, Persian Gulf War #2, the war in Afghanistan. The Western world engaged in massive propaganda. It's been a while since I mentioned it, but that first Persian Gulf War, when Iraq had invaded Kuwait, the Bush, George H.W. Bush, George Bush the elder, who took over after Reagan, his administration hired a PR agency to sell that war, and they had a member of the Kuwaiti royal family, a 12 or 13-year-old girl, go before a joint session of Congress, and she played the atrocity propaganda card, and she said that Iraqi soldiers are throwing babies out of incubators. You can check into that. And that sold the war. That got people to come on board. But it was later discovered that that story was a complete fabrication and was the creation of a PR agency that had been hired by the Bush administration to sell the war. So propaganda is on all sides. The Israelis engage in it, and the Arab world engages in it too. However, the Palestinian propaganda has been far more effective. And I think it's because it appeals to people on a very emotional level. They've inundated the internet and nightly newscasts with images. I've spoken of one here. I saw it with a what seemed to be a Palestinian woman in Gaza leaning over the covered face of her child, going, "Where did they hit you, my boy?" And that was the English translation of the. I'm assuming she was speaking Arabic. And I don't care who you are, if that doesn't hit you in the heartstrings, nothing will. It's gut wrenching. War is horrible. How many babies, how many children, how many young kids, how many old women died in Hiroshima and Nagasaki? How many little babies died in Dresden when the West just carpet bombed the area? Some historians think that Dresden bombing raid, some historians, political historians, have called it a genocide and a crime against humanity and a war crime, and that they say that as many as 100,000 people could have died during that 1 or 2 day bombing raid period. We're talking, the estimates are wide because no one knows what the population of Dresden was, and they just carpet bombed the living crap out of it. Thousands of bombers, like Lancaster bomber types and whatever the Americans were using, going over and just carpet bombing it. No precision, no guided missiles, just, and maybe as many as 100,000, but the low end estimate, 30,000, just over 1 or 2 days. War is a war in of itself. People say that's a crime against humanity, like as if there's such a thing as a just and, a gentlemanly war, a just war. War is unjust. War is ugly. Keep reading. And don't worry, again, Daniel, don't worry. I know you meant Israel. Don't worry about that. Brett Skinner, interesting Luddite info. Little facts you pick up over the course of your life. Sharunian writes, the nuclear bomb that affected Lebanon was brutal. I didn't know that you're surprising me. I don't think there's been any reports anywhere of nuclear bombs being used in Lebanon, unless you're referring to the nukes that were used in Japan at Nagasaki and Hiroshima. Eat Me is here. Great name. After the pager attack, who is now safe? It could be us this time from Wrong Think. 6th warfare generation. Eat Me, thank you. That's what I was saying, if you didn't catch it at the beginning of this video. As I was saying, that everyone has, pretty much everyone, I don't, and Danielle doesn't, but I bet you, if I've got 20 people on the live chat, I bet 17 or 18 of you have cell phones. And it's widely being reported now. They said within probably minutes or within, at no more than an hour or two, they were saying that there's a small electronic, or rather explosive charge next to the battery in these pagers. How do they know? And is an explosive charge needed? No. Lithium-ion batteries can explode without having to have an explosive device near them. I was earlier in the video citing a PC Mag article from 2023, a year ago, before this happened, saying that cell phones can explode. Now, they can catch fire and they can also explode. And battery technology is so advanced now. A lithium-ion battery, is almost in of itself a computer. And can something be programmed into a phone to tell the battery to act in such a way that it will explode? I don't have the engineering background to speak to this in nitty-gritty detail, but I know it's possible. Danielle writes, none of us are safe anymore, but I like Eat Me's comment because it was well framed. Who is now safe? It could be us this time from Wrong Think. If you have this phone in your pocket, are you at potential risk? Could a player someone with the capacity, could they determine that, well, you're expendable? Blow up your phone. Eat Me writes, yeah, in hospitals, in cafe. Imagine if it were to happen on a plane. No kidding. I hadn't even considered that, and that's why I love the live chat. That is what I love about the live chat. What if you've got, even though I don't have a cell phone and Danielle doesn't have a cell phone, but we're on a plane, and as it's taxiing down the runway to take off, and all of a sudden 5 people on the plane, their phones blow up, you're going to have chaos. What if the pilot has it? What if it happens during landing? I don't know if it will work at altitude, at 20,000 feet, if they can still get their messages. I don't know. We now have Starlink or whatever. I think they would work up there. Scary world. And Danielle and Eat Me are talking about the planes, the Boeing planes that are having all kinds of mechanical issues, technical issues that are causing plane crashes and planes to fall from the sky. Danielle is saying they're falling apart since they went DEI. I tend to think it's not a result. It's not. I tend to believe there's strong potential. I got to be careful with the way I frame things here on YouTube. Big Brother's watching. But the words by design come to mind, irrespective of DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. And Brett Skinner, good line. There is such a thing as a just war. 1, 2, 3, 4. I declare a thumb war. Tap, tap, bow. That is a just war. I'll agree with you. Sure, you're saying I'm the type of man who doesn't ask people for money. No. Go to the description. Good luck. You won't find a PayPal or anything like that. I don't ask for cash. Ellis, I haven't. I can't. I'm not going to even attempt. I'm just going to say Ellis K. Appreciate that you liked it. Sometimes I do these and I feel like I'm a little disjointed. I tend to go all over the place. I consider myself a reasonably decent generalist, jack of all trades, master of none. And so, I love theology, but I'm no expert. And that's why, but I know a fair bit, but not nothing like my friend George Antonios, who I just did a podcast with on his station, Counsel and Might, talking about Calvinism versus charismaticism, if that's a word. There's the charismatic movement, and then there's this Calvinistic reform movement within the body of Christ, within the church. And it's one of the things that annoys me, because ultimately, when it comes down to this war that's happening, I don't like to make prophetic announcements. There are too many Christian voices doing that and saying this means this and this means this, and you better, because the end is near. And I've been hearing that the end is near. These are the last days, my friends. Since the 1980s, there was a guy named Herbert W. Armstrong with The World Tomorrow. And I'm here to tell you, friends, we are living in the last days. I've been hearing that since the 1980s, since I was a teenager. And I think in fairness to the Herbert W. Armstrong types of the world, when Isaiah, Ezekiel, Daniel, and the prophets of the Old Testament were making their prophecies, often those prophecies didn't come to fruition for 40, 50, 60, 70 years. The prophets merely were prophesying because they saw the writing on the wall, to reference Daniel. They saw the writing on the wall, and they could see where the direction things were heading. And Herbert W. Armstrong and his World Tomorrow, and these are the last days. I don't think he was wrong. I just think he was a little sensationalistic in his wording, and his heart was in the right place. He wanted to win people for Christ. He wanted to win souls for the Lord. But let's be reasonable. Is it, are we looking at what they call the Ezekiel 38-39 war, where basically Israel is standing alone and is surrounded by Gog of Magog and Put and Cush and Persia and all these, belligerent forces surrounding her? Is that where we're heading? I think it's possible, but I'm not ready to say it definitively that's going to happen next year, this year or next year, the year after, or 5 years from now. I do believe it will happen eventually. Will it happen in my lifetime? I don't know. I do pay close attention. We're told to be aware. Scripture advises us to be aware, to know the season that we're living in. And we've been living in this season. We've been heading down this slippery slope for the last 40, 50 years, longer. We've been heading down this slippery slope. The Western world, Canada. In my nation of Canada right now, along with Korea, North Korea, and China, we are the three countries in the world where an abortion can take place at any time and for any reason. If it's, if a woman is past her due date and decides that she no longer wants to deliver the baby, she can legally obtain an abortion in this country. And it is rare, but it does happen. And it does happen in significant numbers. As a percentage of the total, no, it's not a big number as a percentage. But, one is too many. And it's dozens of such procedures take place every year in this country, and maybe more, because the agencies that should be reporting on this, because it's so politically sensitive, the data is very closely guarded and is hard to access. I shouldn't even touch. You talk about the third rail of everything, third rail of politics, third rail of social media, third rail abortion. And maybe I'll do a video on it. I like touching third rails. I'm covered by the blood of Christ, so I can speak my heart. And if you want to attack me for it, it's okay. Daniel saying hi. Eat Me says that don't apologize for being new. God bless you for showing up. I appreciate it. And I've said before, and I'll say it, I'll end it off, but with this, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I'm the poster child for cancel culture because I am 58 years of age. That makes me old. I'm, on the population pyramid. I'm getting near the top of it. There aren't many, the older you get, the fewer there are. So I'm old. I'm a Christian. I'm white. I'm straight. And so it's like cancel. You're not allowed to talk. Gordon Causey, shut up and sit down and shut up, boomer, even though I'm not a boomer. But I get the reference. Shut up, boomer. And this is my little way of thumbing my nose at the broader culture and saying, you're telling me I'm not allowed to talk? I'll throw my views, I'll throw my thoughts, I'll throw my opinions out there on the internet. We'll see if they resonate with anyone. I'm over 1,000 now. If you want to join, if you're not already, and you want to hit the subscribe button, you're most welcome. If you hit the bell, you also have to hit the bell if you want to be notified. If you don't hit the bell, then you don't get the notifications. Makes no difference. I do even if someone just subscribes but doesn't hit the notifications, that's all cool, because having a larger subscriber number, I believe it means that my videos get a higher ranking, or they'll show up more often. People are more likely to find my channel. The more views I have, the more subscribers I have, the more comments go in, the more thumbs up I get. I don't know a lot about it. It's all about defeating the algorithms and all this stuff, but I'm not doing this for money. So I'm doing it for, a lot of it is to keep my sanity in this crazy world. Okay, and Eat Me found me during the by-election with La Salle Ville-Mar-Verdun, where I screwed up royally and called it East Island, Montreal, because I don't know the island that well. But in fairness, it is the eastern edge of the Western Island. Danielle, uh, Danielle, you and I wish I was closer to Newfoundland. Uh, I don't care anymore either. I'm becoming more and more bold, more and more. I was talking to a woman today at work while I was working, a customer, and I don't know what precipitated the conversation, but it had something to do with Donald Trump. No, it had to. We were talking about ingredients in food and how everything is bad for you. And I said, Robert Kennedy Jr., Bobby Kennedy Jr., RFKJ, he has now taken a turn on MAGA. Instead of Make America Great Again, he's made it MAHA, Make America Healthy Again. And she went, oh, he's nuts. And I said, have you listened to him speak? And she said, well, no, but I've heard some of the things he said. I said, and then I told her, I said that, if you look at the media is going to tell you that RFK Jr., that he's a crackpot and he's a nut bar and that you should ignore him. And that's what our media's job is. They want to program you and tell you what to think, what to believe. They want to tell you how to feel about someone. But I think it's important for you to go and consume, get it directly from the source. Don't go through CBC, CTV, ABC, NBC, whatever. Go directly to the source. And I told her a big one that they hit him with was he talked about this drug, this herbicide, atrazine, and that atrazine is going to flip kids from being boys to girls or girls to boys. That's going to change people's gender. And he suggests this is the reason why this whole transgender stuff is going on. And he said nothing of the sort. What he did say is that atrazine has been shown and proven in studies, in peer-reviewed medical journals, scientific journals, that what it does to African bullfrogs is it takes a male African bullfrog, and in a certain percentage of them do change their gender. They go from being male frogs to female frogs that produce viable eggs. And this atrazine is a herbicide that's used in Canada. And the question should be, what does it do to human beings? Well, we haven't done any studies on that. Oh, you haven't done any studies on that, so you don't know. But instead of saying we don't know what it does to humans, what they say is there is no evidence proving that atrazine has an impact on human sexuality or in human gender. Well, there's no evidence of it because you haven't looked. There's a precept in science, and that is absence of evidence does not necessarily mean absence of evidence. It may be the evidence is there, but you just are not looking for it. I'm going on way too long. Really appreciate all the encouragement you guys are giving me. I love the comments from Mish and Danielle and Eat Me. And I wish you had a different name, Eat Me. When I went to York University, a couple of guys in my residence started a publication, and it was called Eat Me Literally. God, you're taking me back. And Danielle is, wow, I got someone older than me. And yeah, Sharunya knows my age, 58. Danielle, well, when I was a kid, color TV was around. My dad bought his first color TV for the moon landing when they were doing the splashdown. And there's another kettle of fish. Did we really go? But when the capsule was landing in the ocean, he didn't want to watch it on black and white TV. So he went out and bought a Sylvania Super Set. And I think it cost him $400 or $500. And I think that was in the year 1968. We were living in Staten Island, New York at the time. Anyway, I've gone on way too long, an hour and 15 minutes. Think about that cell phone in your pocket. Was it tampered with, or were there some programming in those pagers that exploded? And could that programming exist in your cell phone or in your device? I don't know. I don't have the answers. Anyway, God bless. May the Lord bless and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you. And even in this crazy world with so much going on, may the Lord grant you peace, and he will get into a relationship with his son, get to know Jesus Christ, the name above all names, get into his word. If you can find a faithful church, a biblically sound-based church, get into community and start on that path and realize it's not the destination. The earliest church, they didn't call themselves Christians. They were followers of the way. That's all. That's the way it was framed. They were followers of the way, and it's a path, and it's a long path, and the journey is every bit as important as the destination. So I'll leave you there. Good night. I didn't have Daniel Copeman on tonight giving me Jesus is King, but he is, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. All right. Good night.